Welcome back, you pugnacious pummelers. I'm Lupinefiasco, this is Daily FaB Gameplay, and today we are playing Jarl Vetreidi. For anyone who's new to the channel, what we do here is review replays of games I played on the Talishar.net client days or weeks ago. After enough time has passed, that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my games. I will talk through turn cycles as if I were taking them now, explaining my thought processes for the lines I would take and comparing them to the lines I did take. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future to take down paper events and walk away with that shiny cardboard. If you would like to check out the deck I'm playing here or try it for yourself on Talishar, there is a FaB deck link in the video description below. While you're down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider a YouTube subscription. It's the best free way to support me and to make sure that you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. I have a Blue Sky, I have a Discord, and I have a Patreon where you can find the matchup guide for this deck list. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into the action. Against Dash.io, we would have loved to go first if we had won the die roll, but going second with this hand is about as good as it can be. We're really hoping that Dio is not going to push any kind of damage this turn, because while we will block, we really do not want to. So Dio instead is just going to play out a Teklo Pounder. Our turn is a very easy Oak & Old, pitch Autumn's Touch, double fuse, and discard Fruits of the Forest to gain 2 life, Arsenal, Icequake. See if Dio wants to give us any armor to try to prevent this damage, just taking 9, bottoming 2 cards at random. It's about as good of an opener as we can ask for. Notably, Dio pitching 2 items to play this Teklo Pounder, just as a great example, this is why we choose to go first against Dash.io. If you are able to push a significant amount of damage, not only does she take all of it, but she is not always able to filter those items out of hand by playing an item off the top of her deck, which means that she does very little on her first turn of the game. If you do catch her with those hands, you are significantly far ahead. It's also why you should try to prioritize pushing damage against Dash.io, or at least giving yourself the option to do so if you were instead maybe setting up. Ending with an action point against Dio if you can is never a bad idea. Sometimes you do have better options, but that is why we choose to go first against Dio despite her being an aggro deck, because sometimes she does just draw non-functional hands. Dash playing Teklo Core here, we have an Icequake in Arsenal, so I do think that our follow-up is pretty simple. We have 7 resources available between Frozen to Death, Crumble to Eternity, and Sink Below. Icequake, Glacial Footsteps costs 7, so let's just play all that out. We go Shields down, not having an Arsenal, but with us being 1 turn off of Fiendal Spring Tunic, I don't really see a better line. I don't really want to IP myself this hand by doing something like Footsteps, pitch 2 blues, keep Sink Below, or Footsteps over pitch. I mean, if we're going to pitch 7 anyway, we might as well throw an Icequake in there. Dash unfortunately has Teklo Core, which will likely let her play through a Frostbite, but we are still just doming her for 11. And maybe that Frostbite matters. It's hard to know, unlikely, but it could be relevant, depending on what Dash has in hand. See how Dio wants to deal with 11 here. She could just go down to 16 and try to crack back with something big. 5 cards, 2 resources from Teklo Core, potentially 3 if she's able to use the Foundry Heart. And Teklo Pounder says that she is in a very good position, but we'll see what she wants to do with this hand exactly. Giving us 3 cards plus Foundry Heart is pretty good. I do not mind seeing that one bit. We also get our first Battle Worn counter on Teklo Foundry Heart, which is going to set us up well for this Mangle that we will have quite a difficult time playing. I mean, this is a bit of a yikes situation. So we can use our Tunic and 3 Spinal Crushes to send Mangle for 8. We could also block with a Spinal Crush, then use Tunic and 2 Spinal Crushes to attack with Titan's Fist for 4. This is really not a position that we want to be in. This hand is very statistically unlikely and very bad. So we can't just block 6 on the big shot, because then we don't do anything on our turn. We just have to pass or pitch 2 reds and use Tunic to send Fist for 4. I think blocking for 3 with a Spinal Crush and then using Tunic and 2 Spinal Crushes to Fist arsenaling Mangle is our best shot. The fact that Dash has blocked with Crown of Providence is definitely correct. The fact that Dash has blocked with Teklo Foundry Heart means that the value of playing Mangle goes way up, and if we can arsenal it until we find our Pulse of Isenloft or a Crumble to Eternity so that we get both halves of Gauntlets of Boreal Domain, is definitely worth it. Blocking with the Crown here to try to turn a Spinal Crush into a blue is absolutely the right call. I'm glad I saw it here because I did not give it the attention it deserved. Unfortunately, we draw into another red, and unfortunately that red is it's fine. I think playing the Winter Bite, arsenaling the Mangle, and just taking the Intellect penalty is the right call. It is unfortunate that we can't do anything more impactful this turn when we have so much tempo, but that is just the nature of drawing 5 reds in a row. So we are going to arsenal our Mangle here, hold on to our Spinal Crush, which we can use to block with, and we do draw into the Crumble to Eternity, which is great news for us. So what we can look at doing is playing into the Gauntlets Mangle line, which means that we need to keep 2 of these blues, one of them being Crumble. So we can either block with Channel Lake Frigid and Spinal Crush and then do no other blocking in the turn, or we could block with just Spinal Crush, keep our Channel Lake and Crumble to send Dominated Mangle for 10, and then Arsenal Cold Snap. We could also use the Cold Snap to pay for Mangle and then hold on to Channel Lake Frigid. We cannot play Channel Lake Frigid, Mangle, and Gloves. That would take 8 resources, and we do have 8. So we could pitch Cold Snap, play Channel Lake Frigid, pitch Gauntlets for Gloves, then use Tunic and pitch Spinal Crush to send Mangle for 10 Dominate. That's us taking a lot of damage to pull it off. I think not Channel Laking is fine, and we just use our Spinal Crush to block. We don't need to block the Zipper hit. We can block whatever the follow-up is. We know Dash is going to follow up with at least one more thing. We could block with our Stalagmite here, giving Dash a Frostbite that says that she needs to pitch a card if she wanted to Teklo Foundry Heart. It also says that she would have to item off the top in response to the Stalagmite. That isn't a problem for her. I don't think we need to block this Zipper hit. I think we can wait for whatever the next thing is, and if the next thing is Dash plays an item and passes the turn, then we do get to Channel Lake, Gloves, Mangle. Using the Civic Steps here is kind of a problem because Dash has counters on the Symbiosis shot, and I know me as a Jarl, a new Guardian with Civic Steps and not familiar with when you would or wouldn't block with Civic Steps yet, this is a bad time to do it just because Dash can always work a Symbiosis shot into her turn. But I do agree with not blocking the Zipper hit from hand, the reason being Pulse Wave Harpoon. We need to make sure that we can keep cards not only to use Gauntlets, Mangle, but that we can show Dash. So if we blocked that with Spinal Crush and then we showed Dash maybe 0 to 60 into Pulse Wave Harpoon, we have to show her 3 cards. And we cannot guarantee that she's going to let us keep something we want, especially if we use Spinal Crush as defense and Dash makes us show her our other 3 cards. She can just take our Crumble and our whole plan falls apart. So the fact that we did not block the zipper hit with the Spinal Crush means that we do have the option now to channel Lake Frigid into Gloves, into Mangle. But what we could also do is hold on to Spinal Crush so that we can play it on our next turn. So I think what I want to do with this hand is pitch, use Tunic to pay for Cold Snap, force Dash to either give us a resource or lose her arsenal for the turn, then Channel Lake, Crumble for Gloves, Mangle for 10 Dominate, and Arsenal Spinal Crush. I think that's our best line, because outside of that, we risk taking an intellect penalty. We could overpitch the Spinal Crush if we wanted to free up our arsenal for Cold Snap and not keep a red in hand, but I like having an arsenal. So let's see how I choose to do this. Of course, if I'm doing this now, it is Tunic, Cold Snap, Gloves, Mangle, Arsenal, Spinal Crush. Looks like I am going for the Channel Lake Frigid line, which means I am not going to have an arsenal. I think that is fine. We're expecting that Dash is going to try to block the Mangle, but it also means that it is dominated, so she is going to keep cards in hand. Channel Lake Frigid is going to slow her down quite a bit. Here we have Dash forgetting that Mangle is a real card with text on it, and asking for the undo. Keep in mind, dear viewers, that we did grant Dash.io her undo when she asked for it, because this is one of those games where our opponent takes the undo CCQ far too seriously. Always give your opponent the opportunity to undo, unless they gained information that they shouldn't have, right? Yes, it's undo CC. Yes, you could play Classic Constructed if you always wanted to be able to undo. No, this is not a calling. So Dash here learning that she needs to give way too much equipment to stop Dominated Mangle. I think it is still fine for her to do. She protects the Teklo Foundry Heart. She is able to block in such a way that she doesn't need to galvanize the adaptive plating with one of her Teklo Pounders. But what this does do is lose her value on the adaptive plating, lose her the ability to offensively Crown of Providence, but most importantly, what it does is put her into a position where we are able to start giving her Frostbites with our Jarl ability. So thinking about what our turn would look like if we still had a Spinal Crush in Arsenal and also had our Fiendal Spring Tunic, we could just take a bunch of damage and then Winter's Bite, pummel Spinal Crush, which is pretty good. It does, however, mean that we are taking a bunch of damage, so it might not be the correct thing to do. Dash is having to, not having to pay through Channel Lake Frigid. So definitely a weird situation. Here we have a Fast and the Furious coming down. This is going to be 4 with Go Again. Dash has cranked this turn. What do I want to do with my cards? Oh, sorry, it's 8 because of the double Teklo Pounders. So we could block this out with our Gauntlets, Stalagmite, Civic Steps, and Autumn's Touch. I think blizzarding here is fine so that we know what Dash has going on in the rest of her turn. I don't mind giving a bunch of equipment to stop this Boom Grenade. There is no steam counter on it, so it will not last the turn. Our turn then would be play Winter's Bite, take a card away from Dash, give her another Frostbite, Arsenal Pummel, and start building that Tunic back up, setting up for a future disruptive turn. That sounds like a really good line. I don't love taking 12 here. If I kept cards, yes, there is an advantage to keeping a lot of equipment, but it means that we're taking 12, and then our crackback is, I hate this. I hate using my pummel and not my stalagmite. Yes, it sucks that we aren't getting our stalagmite value, but I would much rather have a pummel to put into my arsenal. This feels like a terrible, terrible decision. So we'll see what our next hand looks like, and if we would have drawn into something where pummel would have been much more helpful. Dash, of course, I should have mentioned, because she cranked the boom grenade and Fast and Furious had go again. The Blizzard did not take away her action point, but it did give her the frostbite that said she couldn't play 0 to 60 from hand, so she took an intellect penalty. The hand that we draw into does not utilize pummel very well, so we can at least say that about our decision to not have a pummel, but man, I wish I had a pummel in my arsenal. Dash playing the Cerebellum Processor from hand, paying through the Frostbite is very nice for us, having to give 2 reds for it. Generating an action point and using the Cerebellum Processor. Here we could think about using our Stalagmite to block the Symbiosis shot just to give Dash a Frostbite. Let's take a look at our hand and see what we actually want to do with this. We can play Imposing Visage, pitch and channel Mount Ison, finding Hypothermia to take away Dash's Go Again on her attacks. That sounds pretty good, considering that Dash's Go Again primarily comes from boost, and then we Arsenal and Icequake. We are 1 turn away from being able to Tunic, Icequake, pitch, Titan's Fist for 7, Frostbite on hit. So not having the pummel here actually working out. We could try to keep 2 blues in hand so that we can just play Icequake and then attack with Titan's Fist. But I don't mind being a little more defensive and just sitting on the Icequake until we find something better to do with it. We still have Command and Conquers in the deck. We have Oakenolds that we could find. I do think we should be blocking with Stalagmite here just to slow down Dash's turn. She has showed us 2 reds, so if we block with the Stalagmite and she wants to play this 0 to 60 from hand, she's probably pitching another red to do it. And I'm fine taking 4, or I'm fine blocking with Sink Below, and then just finding Hypothermia and passing the turn. That seems like it would have been a good opportunity to block with Stalagmite. Blocking for 5 here seems bad. I think the Stalagmite Sink Below is how I would like to block, and then Imposing for Hypothermia, Arsenal, Icequake. Notably, Hypothermia also gives Dash it would not give Dash Frostbite because we did not play it. We put it into the arena with Imposing Visage. I want to block with Stalagmite, Sink Below, and then not sink anything. Imposing for Hypothermia. What I can do if I do block, I guess what I can do if Dash doesn't have a follow-up is pitch the Sink Below for Icequake and then pitch Imposing for Titan's Fist. That seems like the worst way to use my hand. Outpace for 2 is whatever. We could block with Icequake. This whole turn has seemed not good, where we're going to get to Titan's Fist for 4, we're going to get to Arsenal a Sink Below, so that's all well and good, but generally I don't mind having defensive options. I really want offensive options. So having the Sink Below to Arsenal instead of an Icequake just seems not great. And of course here we draw a hand where if we could block with Frozen to Death, have our Tunic up, and get to Icequake, Oakenold, double fuse with Pulse, that would be insane. That would be so good. And instead we kind of just can't do that. Now we do get to block with Frozen to Death and Sink Below, which puts us into a position to Dominated Oakenold, Arsenal, Pulse. We can block with our Winter's Bite here and then Sink Below. There isn't really a reason to block with the Winter's Bite instead of the Frozen to Death, and in fact I would rather have Winter's Bite still in my deck if we do get to a position where we are in fatigue. But either way, we're going to get to dominate Oakenold. We will take a bunch of damage from the Boom Grenade, And Dash plays Spark of Genius to find a Teklo Core and a 5th card for the arsenal. So overall, very strong turn from her. We do get to crack back for 9 with Dominate. That will force her to bottom 2 cards and hold on to Defensive Frostbite with Pulse of Isenloft. Dash has the Teklo Core. Being able to pay through the Frostbite becomes a lot easier, but still, very good turn cycle for us. Double Fused Oakenold. This may surprise you to learn. Good card. Pretty good. Pretty good thing to be doing. Dash takes 9, keeps 3 cards total, and we get the Defensive Frostbite from Pulse of Isenloft in Arsenal, which we would like to play if we can, just because this hand does not convert super well without using the Arsenal. So, tune up here for 4 with Go Again. Seems like a fine opportunity to block with Pulse, pitching a Cold Snap to do so. Our Glacial Footsteps then blocks for 4 if we need it to. Our turn, we can pitch Cold Snap to attack with Titan's Fist for 3 and Arsenal Pummel. Or if we block with the Pulse and get to keep these 3 cards in hand, we can use Tunic to pay for Cold Snap, potentially freeze Dash's Arsenal, but also give her a Frostbite. Pitch Footsteps to Titan's Fist for 4, and then Arsenal Pummel. So I like using the Pulse of Isenloft here. I hate blocking with 2 Cold Snaps. I don't know why I'm so hesitant, and I hate blocking with Pummel. This is terrible. This is a terrible, terrible decision. We should just play the Pulse of Isenloft and be done with it. I suppose what I'm looking at doing here is, this is not good. And if we blocked with the Pulse, then Dash doesn't get to do this. So at this point, I'm considering playing Pulse, pitching Cold Snap, which I do think is the right decision, because Pulse does convert into blocking for 6. Unless Dash has a follow-up to the Outpace, however, she does not have Go Again. We'll see, and we can block with Footsteps if we need to. Overall, the turn worked out for us, but not blocking with Pulse on the tune-up was absolutely a mistake. Definitely wrong, and we paid for it. And of course, we still don't have Pummel and Arsenal. I don't know what it was with me this game and not wanting to Arsenal Pummels. I mean, look at this hand. Alright, this Pummel would be a little hard to work with. We'd probably want to block with it, but we would get to Frostfang, Pitch Hypothermia, Tunic, Pummel from Arsenal, Arsenal Oakenold. Here we can still do all of that, but we really don't want to block with this hand at all. We want to keep the hand so that we can Frostfang, Pummel, Arsenal, Oakenold. Worst case, we're probably looking to block with Oakenold, so that we could Frostfang Pummel, and if Dash overblocks the Frostfang, we just Arsenal the Pummel. Choosing to take 8, choosing to cash in our life lead so that we can Frostfang Pummel, Arsenal Oakenold. I think this is probably wrong. I wouldn't have minded blocking with Oakenold and Gauntlets there just to try to stall out whatever Dash is doing. We also do not super telegraph what we have cooking, because if we Frostfang, Pitch Hypothermia, keep 2 cards in hand, Dash can pretty well assume that we are going to pummel. And if Dash blocks 9, well, on the one hand, sure, she blocked 9, and we're pretty happy about that. But on the other hand, we take an intellect penalty. So here, blocking with the Oakenold, I think this is a great idea. Blocking with Stalagmite as well seems bad. Yes, we can just block with the Oakenold, take 2, go to 9. Like, that's totally fine. And then here we get to Frostfang, Pitch Hypothermia, represent Pummel, let Dash decide how she wants to play around that. I don't know why I'm undoing. I don't think our decision was, because I wanted to block with the Stalagmite so that I could give Dash the Frostbite so that she can't break her boots. Dash chooses not to give me the undo, which, as previously mentioned, we gave her the undo. So again, undo CC, just let them undo, all right? This isn't your winning in for the Pro Tour, but if you also already asked for one, come on. Come on, Dash. Frostfang comes in for 5. On hit, pay 2 or discard. Jarl triggers, gives Dash a Frostbite. Dash no longer has Teklo Core to cheat her resources. So we'll see how she wants to block the Frostfang, knowing that we are representing Pummel. We're also representing Lethal. If Dash just says no blocks, if she blocks for 6, I will Pummel. If she blocks for 9, definitely would not. So here oh my god. Here I would have liked to Pummel and just take Dash's hand. I can see my thought process being that Dash has a Frostbite, only has 2 cards, so potentially cannot utilize her turn at all. But now we draw into a hand that can't Pummel, right? We have to give our gauntlets. We can also, let's think, probably block with, this is a tricky one. So we could just block with Sink Blow. We can sink one of our blues to try to find an attack. We would probably want to sink Channel Mount Ison. Hold on to our Crumble in case we sink into an Oakenold. And if we let's keep it at that. Let's sink the Channel Mount Ison, try to find an Oakenold, and if we don't find an Oakenold, then we can go from there. Because we do have our Titan's Fist Pummel line available. We can Imposing Visage into Channeling Frigid to slow Dash down. But I mean, the Imposing Visage seems wrong. But what we do get to do here is play Channel Mount Ison, use Tunic, pitch into Titan's Fist. So Titan's Fist coming in for 6 with an on-hit Frostbite. Dash has 2 Frostbites already. She will lose 2 life to the Channel Mount Ison effect. And we get to keep Channel Mount Ison around with Crumble. We can also just play Icequake by pitching Channel Mount Ison, attack with Titan's Fist by pitching Crumble to Eternity, and then represent Pummel. Here we attempt to undo. And of course, Dash is not going to let us because, this is a very important game for Dash.io. This matters a lot. These are Talishar stats that we're talking about. This is, if you die on Talishar, you die in real life. At the same time, this is another situation where I'm not sure why I'm trying to undo, because this turn seems fine. We're going to Titan's Fist for 6 and represent making it 10. If Dash does not give us 2 cards, then she does just die. And if she does give us 2 cards, then we continue to just stall out the game until we can find something to pummel. So Pummel will go through. We will Titan's Fist for 10. That is enough to get the win. And just, again, as a spiteful little boy, if you are going to refuse undo on Talishar, at least win the game. We made some mistakes in this one, for sure. I was very hesitant to ever arsenal a Pummel, and I cannot tell you why that was the case, because pummeling our disruptive attacks is the best thing that Jarl can be doing. When you can give your opponent a Frostbite with Frostfang or Icequake, and then also force them to discard a card with a Pummel, and push a Command and Conquer or a Frostfang effect through, you just eat your opponent's entire turn. So I was very quick to block with these Pummels, and I cannot tell you why that was the case. Also, refusing to play Cold Snaps that give my opponent Frostbites and freeze their arsenal is a mistake. The deck gave us very good hands, and we refused to use them, and still managed to get there, have an effective 8 life. Our Frostbites are really going to slow Dio down as she draws these 5 red hands. So I feel good about my position in this game, but we could have won this game like 2 turns ago with more life. So a lot of misplays, a lot to learn about this deck, but generally having a good time with it and having good results. I hope you enjoyed this game. I hope you learned something from it. If so, be sure to use your own pummel on the like button. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback. If you have not already done so, please consider a YouTube subscription. They are free. They help me out a lot. I have a Patreon, I have a Discord, and a Blue Sky. Those links are all in the video description below. Until the next time I see you on Daily FaB Gameplay, take care.